Day. We're so welcome to 2024 Advocacy Day. So glad you could join us for today's panel discussion. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Denise, who will welcome you more thoroughly, introduce the panelists, and facilitate the discussion. But before that happens, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items to keep everything flowing smoothly for everybody. You may have already heard or seen the alert telling you that this session is being recorded, which it is. And so you had the option to either hit got it or to leave the meeting. I hope you have chosen the former. We didn't want to lose anyone over it being recorded. So one thing we want to ask is that you keep your microphone muted throughout the panel discussion and only unmute yourself during the question and answer portion when you are speaking. We're starting out with everybody muted to begin with, and we ask that you just keep yourself muted until the Q&A, and even then keep it muted if you're not the person speaking. You're welcome to have your camera either on or off, whatever you're most comfortable with. That's your choice. Captioning is available. So you should be able to find that button. If you're looking at the screen that looks the way mine does, it is along the bottom, or you should be able to tab to the captioning button. In terms of format, we're going to field questions for the presenters after the panel discussion. So you can type your questions into the chat during the discussion, or you can wait until after the discussion and type them in at that time. But we will be collecting those and then asking them after the panelists have done their bit. We are trying to keep the amount of chat under control for the benefit of those using screen readers. So if you can wait, that would be great, but it's not necessary. The other way you can ask questions is once we are in the Q&A section, you can raise your hand, and you can do that two ways. You can either find the raise your hand control in Zoom, or you can literally raise your hand by making sure your camera is on and holding your hand up over your face so that we know that you have a question that you'd like to ask. Let's see. If you have a technical question or you're having trouble, please feel free to type that in the chat at any time, and we'll respond directly to you so that everybody in the session isn't seeing or hearing our answers to you. And if you're unable to use the chat feature to do that, you can call the council office at 608-255-1166, and our front desk staff will route your question appropriately. Let's see. In order to do all of these things I've been telling you, there are a few keyboard commands that you may find useful. Some of you probably already know these, but to mute or unmute your microphone, if you're on a PC, then hold down Alt and press the letter A. If you're on a Mac, it's Command-Shift-A. To turn your camera on or off on a PC, it is Alt-V, V as in video, and on a Mac, it's Command-Shift-V. To raise or lower your hand on a PC, it's Alt-Y, and on a Mac, it's Option-Y. And then you also are able to control your view between the speaker view, where you can only see the person or people who are speaking, and the gallery view, in which you see everybody. On a PC, that is Alt, hold down Alt and hit F1. That is for speaker view. And then for gallery view, it's Alt F2. On a Mac, it's a little different. You can toggle between them. And if you hold down Command and Shift and then hit the letter W, it will switch to whichever one you are not already on. I believe that is all the housekeeping items that I have for you at this time. And if I forgot something, I'm sure somebody will point it out. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Denise.
Hey, thanks so much, Bob. Thanks so much, council team, for all of your awesome support in getting folks in today and settled. I'm Denise Jess, the Executive Director with the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, and I am really delighted to have you all here, whether you're here now at noon or whether you're watching this later on, it's recorded. It's awesome to have 50 some advocates from around the state signed up and joining us in some form or fashion today. So the council's always had such a strong commitment to public policy advocacy. It has been one of our pillars since our founding in 1952. And what's so powerful about that is that advocacy has been led by people with vision loss. So those of us with lived experience are speaking our truth and speaking to what it is that would improve the quality of our lives from our lived experience. That is something to be celebrated because it has a lot of power to it. When we work with our sighted allies and they help carry the message as well, based on what they've learned from us, that also has power to it. And so I'm very proud to continue that legacy of doing public policy advocacy on behalf of Wisconsinites with vision loss. We also know that good public policy benefits more than just those of us with vision loss. So I often see our work as a pay it forward for the folks to come next. And we know that there are so many people in Wisconsin, particularly in our working age and older adult years, who are becoming visually impaired from disease or genetic disorders or accidents or any number of things. So we're paying it forward for those of us with vision loss into the future, and folks will never even know. We're also paying it forward for other folks with disabilities, and we're paying it forward to make our communities more inclusive for everybody. So for those of you on the call today who have had your hand in advocacy, whether it's just a little finger dip or you've been up to your elbows in advocacy, I just want to express my gratitude for that. I'm really over the moon delighted to welcome our three panelists. So you'll get in just a minute an opportunity to meet Brent Goodman, Wendy Dwyer, and Liz Fryseth, and they'll introduce themselves. I'm not going to introduce them introduce them. They can do that themselves, and they can do it quite beautifully. They are all advocates from around the state who are doing really good work and meaningful work, and who have entered advocacy through different doorways. One of the things we often hear from folks, and it was a question posed to us as folks registered, is how do I start my journey? And the beauty is there's no right way to start it. It's really what's meaningful for you and where does it make sense for you to start. And so I think as you hear from these three panelists today, you'll hear the different ways that they've entered their advocacy. I know I started my advocacy as a middle schooler, and I've been doing it for, wow, a really long time. So there's always a place to start, whether you're a middle schooler like me, or whether you're 65, 75, even 85 years old. That advocacy doorway, all we need to do is reach out, open that, turn that knob, and walk through that door. And so my hope is after you've heard from our three panelists today, that little fire that lives in you is ignited to take the next step in whatever your advocacy journey is, whether it's that very first step or to continue to keep that fire lit. Because advocacy is a lot of work. And so how do we keep our fire lit as well? So let's kick it off and get ourselves going on hearing from our amazing panel. After the panel, we will have time for some questions for the panelists, and then we'll also take a dive into voting equity today as well, given our elections. So Brent, I'm so happy to turn it to you with that opening question, an opportunity to introduce yourself, where you're from, kind of anything you want to say about your affiliation to the council. And then the big question is, what really lights your fire around advocacy? And then when you're ready, go ahead and hand it off to another one of our panelists.
Okay, thank you so much, Denise, and thank you everybody for joining us, whether you're live now or watching later. My name is Brent Goodman. I live in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, a little town up north, about 7,000 people. And I'm new to advocacy, and I'm new to vision loss. I was fully sighted until the age 45. And after a couple of years of back-to-back retinal detachments, I'm left partially sighted. The Wisconsin Council issued my first white cane in March of 2018. So I'm new to using white canes and training. My main focuses for advocacy are mental health, because I know the struggles of transitioning from being a fully sighted person to being partially sighted or going completely blind. The other focus, of course, is white cane fundraising, helping the council continue to get white canes in the hands of those who need them and provide the training, then the follow-up training. And the next step for me is I really want to get involved in transportation advocacy and making changes to get better public transportation to rural areas. Let's see, I am a volunteer on the Council for the Blind on the board. I'm a Lions Camp counselor during the first 2 weeks in June for both the youth and adult session, so I hope to see some of you there. And I'm also starting to help out the Wisconsin Office for the Blind and Visually Impaired as a peer counselor and doing group discussions with other people who are going through what I've gone through. Liz or Wendy, do you want to go next?
I'll go next. This is Wendy. My name's Wendy Dwyer, and I'm really excited to be here. And it's wonderful to bring all our voices and ideas together. So thank you for everybody participating. I've been in advocacy for a long time. I started working with refugees over 30 years ago, and I have been a strong advocate for literacy and job training and just inclusion in general for everybody. So I've been doing this for a very long time. And I started to lose my sight my whole life, because I have retinitis pigmentosa, but I stopped driving 15 years ago. And it helped me narrow the focus of my advocacy. I work very hard to raise the awareness of all the different sight loss experiences that we have, that you may be able to see something, but still very much need a guide dog or a sight cane. And help people understand that they're creating barriers by judging anyone who needs to use tools. So that's a big part of what I do. My biggest in-state advocacy was pushing very strongly and working with my state representative to make the WISDOT jobs website accessible for everyone. And we'll talk more about that later, but that started out small and then ended up being a larger project. So yeah, I look forward to hearing what everybody is doing, and I'll share more as we go along. Thank you so much. And I live here in Madison, Wisconsin, so that's where I am.
Hi, I'm Liz Fryseth, and I live in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I'm in the middle of advocacy. I've been doing it for some time now. I would say in about 2016, I had lost most of my residual vision. I have a condition called retinopathy of prematurity. So I learned that advocating to get needs met was an ideal thing, because my passion is life happens, right? We can't stop. We just need to keep moving forward. But in my circumstance, accidents, injuries, and emergency preparedness became number one in my book. And so I do a lot of emergency preparedness as well as transportation advocacy. I belong to so many groups and organizations that help support people with disabilities. And I just want to make a small impact to have a great change in life. Thanks.
Yeah, Liz, Brent, and Wendy, thank you so much for kicking it off. So let's kind of move to some practical examples, because you kind of wet our whistle with some of the work that you're doing now and the things you're passionate about. So Liz, can I kick off with you right away, since you were our last voice? What are a couple of really concrete examples of your advocacy work? And we all know advocacy can take a long time to make change, but if there's been any kind of forward movement or positive results. So just a couple examples would be awesome, and then hand it off to another one of your panelists.
Absolutely. Thanks, Denise. I do a lot of emergency preparedness with having community conversations. A lot of those conversations started with our first responder entities and then grew within the community. And I put together panels of all people of life stage and ages with vision loss. And so really opening up the conversation to have a community involvement was ideal, although everything does take time. But getting that in place and then having a ripple effect within the community have brought out others to make their own plans and have their own voices be heard of their needs and knowns to actual city officials about we matter too for emergency preparedness. And on the other side, as far as transportation goes, advocating the needs within a system that was built for structure and not being adaptable for vision loss and people with other disabilities. And so advocating for the needs of change sometimes can be a little difficult, but progression and change do happen. So just keeping in mind patience is key. Wendy, I'd like to pass it on to you.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to mention, I was hit by a truck in October by a driver who blew through a stop sign. So my guide dog and I were in the crosswalk almost across the street and got hit. It was horrific. So that has sort of intensified my advocacy about pedestrian safety. And so in order to do that, I have to learn a lot. So I would say like a big tip is if something's really getting your goat, start to collect some data and also start to find out who can make the largest change in your area. So I've been pulling together people who can work to improve the pedestrian safety of people in Madison, Wisconsin. One other thing that really helps is every time you talk to someone, I do this, you can do whatever you want, but this is just something I do, but I write down who I'm talking to, the time of day I talk to them, and what they shared. So I don't have to look back and go, who was that said that, and misquote somebody. So it's really important by putting that down. I think that is what happened, helped a lot to have Chris Taylor, when she was state representative, come alongside me, because when I came to her, I had a lot of information to share. So that is right now, that's what I'm doing. And I'm kind of honing my skills in a new way, collecting traffic data. And it turns out we live in an extremely dangerous city for pedestrians. And so that's one tip I have. And also not to be dissuaded. If somebody says they'll get back to you, ask for a time and a date. That puts them on notice that you expect some type of follow-up. And I'm going to throw it over to Mitch. Or
Actually,
Brent, sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, Mitch, hop on in. Sorry.
Yeah.
Everybody
Thank,
gonna.
thank you. Let's see, for me, I just dipped my toes in the water last year to celebrate and honor White Cane Day on October 5th. I really got engaged. The Wisconsin Council website was noting that that any small town in Wisconsin, you can ask your mayor to do a proclamation that day is White Cane Day in your area, and there's a map. And I noticed that Rhinelander wasn't on the map, so it was my mission to put it on the map. And so my life, I emailed my elected officials. I wrote them an email with reasons why they should do this. I attached the prepared language that is a template that's available for anybody to send their elected officials. And I also gave I gave a little review of like, this is how I feel, this is how comfortable I feel, how great the sidewalk system is in Rhinelander right now. I pointed out a lot of positives and finished up with a suggestion for ways that we can improve. Like, it would be so nice if we had a shuttle bus between Rhinelander and Wausau, and we could link to that major transit hub too. And sure enough, within the week, I got an email back saying there was going to be on the agenda, and I got to announce in the public forum that October 15th is White Cane. So that was really reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, you three. What couple things I want to pull out that I think just speak to really good concrete advocacy is each of you started with something that you had passion about, and then figured out, what can I do about it? And so, Liz, one of the things I heard in your work was building momentum. So, starting with your emergency responders and doing community conversations and creating more and more folks who are on board with you to move something forward. Wendy, I really heard do your homework. That is one of the things we can do as really strong advocates is know the data, know how the system works so that we're asking for, advocating for things that with the right people, things that they have some power over to be able to influence. Remember who you've talked with so that you can refer back to them and, get your bulldog on to come back to them to say, hey, I'm just checking in, or, this is the time we agreed that you'd hear back. And then Brent, I really appreciate that starting small, let me get Rhinelander on the map. And then also naming what is working in your community. That's so critical for our public officials to know what they're doing right. I think as advocates, it's sometimes really tempting to tell people what they're doing wrong. And too much of that, and people tune you out. So starting with that little bit of honey of here's what's working. Here's how this makes a difference for me. So they can do more of that. And then here's where I'd like to see some change. So I think in my advocacy journey, as long as I've been doing it, and it's been a long, long time, there's still some things that kind of take me by surprise, or I'm like, wow, both positive, I didn't expect that, or sometimes, less positive, negative. So I'm curious, and we'll kick it off with Wendy, about what kind of surprises have you had in your advocacy journey that you'd want folks to know about so that they feel kind of ready for a potential surprise.
Yeah, I would say don't be surprised that there's people that want to come alongside you. I was so frustrated with that statewide website that actually it was the web system for the state, but it was even veterans benefits. It was everything. But I was really surprised how quickly my state representative came alongside me. She's now a judge, but at the time she was my state rep. And, just realizing that there are people that we elected that really want to get things done, and they want to get them done for the people who are in their constituency. So don't be surprised or afraid to go to your state rep. That is a big one. Another one, I was surprised recently, Denise, was in that meeting about pedestrian safety that Rebecca Hoyt had hosted. That the person who's head of the buses, he was really surprised to hear how wonderful bus drivers have been in my life as a person who's sight impaired and relies on public safety on public transportation. And so I shared a couple of things, and I think it opened him up very much to the rest of the conversation because of it wasn't fake honey, it was real honey. I really do think our bus drivers are complete
Yep,
heroes in our town.
exactly.
So those are a couple of surprises I had.
Awesome, thank you. Somebody else want to go next, Brent or Liz?
I'll jump
This is-
in.
Okay.
Oh, this is Liz. Something that has surprised me was the actual planning piece of it. Having that plan, whether you utilize a cane or a guide dog, having that initial plan, when I talk within the community, people go, I didn't think about that. I didn't have that conversation with my loved ones or friends or family of what my needs or what outcomes I want to have. So when having our community conversations with first responders, they came with their own questions, and it was a great give and take, if you will, with the outcome, because it opened up another conversation of, well, how would you handle ABC or XYZ? And then asking appropriate or finding information from either the council and coming back to that, or maybe utilizing a guide dog resource, or finding them the information needed. When I look at transportation, being that sounding board and offering your assistance to make sure that realistically the accommodations needed are there and put in place, and if not, making that recommendation so it is accessible for all. Thanks. I'll hand it over to
Hey, this is Brent. What I found surprising is how easy it was to make the small change and get the white cane proclamation. And what helped was the template language provided by the council. And along those lines, the council also offers template language for a myriad of other ways to contact and get engaged with your elected officials about advocacy topics. The hardest thing for me was looking up who my alderman was and my mayor's address. But that gave me the confidence now, knowing how our city council system works. And now that they know me and I've introduced myself as an advocate, I feel more comfortable starting the conversation about changes to the transportation system as well. Along the lines of mental health, what also surprised me is how much of a change and how much of a help you can be as a mentor losing your vision to someone who's newer to losing vision than you. And the smallest things can help make the biggest change. So don't be afraid to, if you think it's nothing for you, like, oh, did you think of putting a bump out on your oven? That can change somebody's life and really make a big change.
There's so much, again, in what the three of you have said. It's just so awesome. I'm really quite touched by it. So one of the themes I heard was authenticity. So, being our true selves and complimenting with earnesty when it is due. It opens the heart of the people that we're talking with. Being a public official myself on our city's transportation commission, folks generally come to me when they're upset about something. So, and it's very easy to kind of get defensive defenses up. So really naming what it is that you appreciate, or what's working, opens the heart, and it helps create the bridge for conversation. And I heard that as a theme for all three of you. The other thing that I heard, Liz, and what you said, is that if you don't know the answer to something that's being asked, you research it. And that's really so powerful, because it's, again, what builds trust between you and the public official. So it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out, and I'll get back in touch with you, because now they know you're trustworthy. You're not just going to be pulling answers out of your ear and making stuff up. And that, again, allows relationship to build. And Brent, you said something about, and now they know me. So a big theme throughout advocacy: good advocates build relationship. We don't come in, ask for our one thing, and then bye. We build relationship, and and we educate. So, and that's something I heard very strongly through all three of you as well, that there are things that public policy folks simply don't know, because they're dealing with so many things. So this is our opportunity to help them learn. There are lots of challenges to advocacy, and so I'd love to have a little bit of time to talk about kind of what you see as some of the challenges and ways that you are working with those challenges so that they don't become barriers, or working around the challenges. So Brent, can I kick it off to you first to talk about
Sure.
those challenges?
Sure.
Thanks.
The biggest challenge for me was just stretching out of my comfort zone and stepping up and getting over this belief that one person can't make a change. And having not been involved in any advocacy through my life, I've been an educator and a creator, over that mental hang up while going through my own vision challenges and all of the mental health issues that we go through. What has helped with that is showing up, like saying yes to invitations like this, showing up, which then it builds confidence that I can do more of this in the future, that it goes well. Those are the main things. Liz or
Thank
Wendy?
you.
I would say a really good thing that I recently learned: advocacy is hard and it's stressful, and you need to take a break from it sometimes. Don't let it roll you over. You're moving something forward. It shouldn't be rolling back on top of you. But the thing that I learned is to speak from your scars, not from your bleeding wounds. And what that means is, I was very injured. I mean, I couldn't walk for a long time. I had a back brace. It was horrible. And I was so angry. And I used that time to collect data and collect my thoughts and create a plan. So now when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking from a place where I don't have the energy to be an advocate and stay on top of things. But you don't always have that energy, and it's okay to take a break and write everything down and collect information and create a plan when you don't have the energy to go up against a hard advocate or a difficult problem. And I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, is pacing yourself, stepping away from it, maybe creating some allies during that time, and not feeling like you're in it alone, because that could be very draining. And we all need to be very protective of our own mental health. That you deserve that. So, yeah, that's my biggest tip, or my biggest challenge.
Hi. I agree with Wendy on that. I also think that mindfulness matters, especially when we look at, lived experience and the challenges that we face and what we can conquer and overcome, is huge, but it takes time. And sometimes that's snail's pace. And then one of the giant things that I look at is how can I make it better for the next generation? And how can I help them on that journey to ease life easier? And I know in my own journey, watching lived experience with a close friend and mentor and my own challenges, and then finding small little ways I can make it just a little bit brighter, just a little bit nicer for the next generation as they move forward. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent.
So a really key theme I hear from all three of you is self-care matters. So our mental, emotional, and physical well-being really matters. And I think that's so true because advocacy is hard work. There's going to be no, and I see every no as getting me to my yes. I'm like, okay, what did I learn from that no? How can I work that as I move forward? And there are times when taking a break, there are times when doing self-care, there are times when reaching out to our allies, there are times to cry a little bit too. All of that is so critical to being in the advocacy for the long haul. I watch in my world folks burn themselves out because they don't take a break, or they're always so angry and upset, and then they're not there for the long journey. And I just hear that as such a powerful theme from all three of you. So thank you for bringing that to the space. So my last formal question is, what would you really love for folks to take away from today? What hasn't been said yet that you want to speak to, or something that you really hope is the takeaway for folks joining us for this session. So Liz, can I kick it off to you?
Sure. So I think my small takeaway is there is no wrong way. Just be you. Don't expect perfection. We're not perfect. We're all human beings. And reach out for help when you need it, because that's what really matters. And a community is behind you. And just know that you're not alone.
Mhm. Thank you.
Wendy.
Okay. I am going to piggyback right on that. I think everyone's experience matters and all of our experiences are unique. And sometimes we all get lumped together as people who don't see or don't see well. And it's just not true. We all have different goals and passions and experiences. So each one of our voices opens up doors and places that somebody else's voice might not open. You might do a sport that somebody else never thought, people didn't think about that, or like Liz is doing with the emergency response. It's so needed for everybody, but that was something that came to Liz's mind. And I would say just a small example of that is when I was in the hospital, I was in the trauma unit, I guess it was. And a whole groups of doctors would walk in and only one would introduce themselves. But as a sight impaired person who sees nothing in low light, I could hear that there were other people in the room. And so even in my very, injured state, I would say, I can't see you. I need to know who's in this room. And that may change something for someone else who's in the trauma unit, because it is impolite to have 6 people walk in and only one person introduce themselves. It's kind of ridiculous. And especially when you're feeling vulnerable in the dark. So whatever your experience is, something that happens that you think you need to speak up, don't assume that somebody else has already said it, or that someone's just being ignorant and not caring. They may just not know. So every one of our voices on this call are so needed, and don't ever underestimate your experience. And Brent.
The only thing I'd add to that is along the theme of starting small is advocacy starts with a conversation with your family or with your community. If you aren't in a low vision support group, join one and start connecting and joining forces with other people and finding and having conversations about what are the issues that are important to your community in the area. Also, if you're trained to use a white cane, you go out and proudly use your white cane. Show up and be visible. Don't be shy. And if somebody is asking you questions, if you're out and someone asks you if you need help or has questions about why you're using your white cane, but also using your cell phone, have a conversation with them and start educating. So advocacy doesn't have to be marching on the Capitol and knocking on your legislator's door the first day. It starts with small conversations and building community.
Mhm.
I love that. That's a really awesome way to end our formal part of the panel. So starting small is as important as those big actions, and and it builds, and our confidence builds, and eventually we may find ourselves being invited to join committees and groups, and when we're ready to do that, that's another avenue for us to pursue. Some of us are public officials, and we've been invited to do that and took that opportunity, or elected officials, or serving on different committees and advisory councils. Not everybody has to do that, though. I think sometimes in our minds we leap to, I'm not a good advocate if I'm not marching on the Capitol or knocking on my legislator's door or not serving as a public official. Some of us are born to do that and we love it. Some of us work towards that, and that's great. But some of us are just really beautiful, powerful advocates in our community, showing up with authenticity and helping people to learn and stretch and grow and break out of any stereotypic thinking, so that we're on their minds when they're making decisions. So thank you to each of you for bringing your kindness, your authenticity, and your candor to this conversation. We'd love to hear from the folks in our audience, and I'm going to do this in a couple of different phases. So one is for right now. I'd love to give you an opportunity if you have questions for Wendy or Brent or Liz about some of the advocacy work that they're doing. If you'd like to learn more about that, I want to create the space for that first. I know that some of you have stories to share, and I'd love to honor that. We're going to kind of do that near the end of the session after we talk about voting access. So for now, are there things that any of our panelists shared that you'd like to learn a little bit more about? So Kathleen, I know you're monitoring the chat. I haven't heard anything come in the chat, but I know we may have some folks there. And also, if there are folks who would like to unmute and raise your hand, either by holding it in front of the camera or by hitting the raise hand button on your Zoom link. So let's see what questions are out there. And panelists, if you want to ask a question of each other, that would be awesome too.
See. And Denise, I'm going to go ahead and share. Someone had asked via a direct message about whether or not we'd be able to share our some of that template that Brent mentioned about White Cane Safety Day. So we'll be sharing links and things like that after this. So don't worry, you don't have to try to get this from the chat, but I'll be sharing some of those via the chat today too. So if you're real anxious and want to get those links, they'll be there. But so yeah, so I'm gonna just put in here the link to our White Cane Safety Day page, where we have more information about if you would like to join in like Brent did and contact your local government. And then I'm gonna look through and
can I add something to that answer, Kathleen? This is
Sure.
Bob. I'm Bob Jacobson. I'm the communications director at the council. Another great way to access those sorts of materials on an ongoing basis is to sign up for our action alert list, which you can do on our website. There is a page you can navigate to where you can sign up for our e-newsletter on site, as well as our action alert list. And when there is something in particular going on that we would like to encourage folks to contact policymakers about, we will often include resources like templates you can adapt for your own individual purposes.
This is Brent. I also believe, isn't there a permanent library of downloadable PDFs on the website of different topics that you can bring to your legislator?
Mhm.
We
Am I
do
remembering that
have,
correctly?
well, go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, Brent, you must be referring to our advocacy position papers. So
Yes.
on our advocacy page on the WCBVI website, and I'm hearing lots of chatter in the chat, so I'm thinking folks are putting links in. Thank you. So on our Advocacy Day page on the WCBVI website at wcblind.org, you can find our position papers on our advocacy priorities. So transportation, services for people with blindness and vision impairment, education, civil rights, including voting and website accessibility, etc. We do a little overview of what the issue is, what the issues are, and then our budget asks for the state legislature and the governor, and then bills that we'd like to see passed or public policy in the state agencies. So those are really, really informative, and we update those, pretty regularly, usually before each next budget cycle, which will be going into another state budget at the beginning of the year. Yeah, Brent, thanks for mentioning those.
No, it's a great starter kit. Thank you.
There's also a couple toolkits too. I think they're on our media page, but if you're working with an entity like a healthcare organization or another that has an inaccessible website or inaccessible social media, there's some toolkits that are also on the website that can help them, do something better. Because sometimes they just simply don't know. So you tap into those toolkits as well and share those. Are there other questions that folks have at this point? Here, Marty just
Yeah.
raised his hand.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we sure
Yes.
can.
Hi, yeah, I'm Marty Hutchings. I'm down here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm on the Transit Commission, and a couple of my issues are obviously, better transportation. So I relate to Brent, and I also relate to Wendy because I'm also interested in pedestrian safety. A while ago, I learned that Milwaukee and Madison had audio pedestrian signals.
Mhm.
Then in the process of installing them, we have none down here in Kenosha,
Whoa.
and
Yeah.
we're the third largest city in Wisconsin.
Wow.
Being near 95,000 people, and I want to get audio pedestrian signals installed. I went and visited the mayor. I even put a piece in the paper for the Voice of the People explaining what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before COVID. I got a promise from the mayor that we would do 2 intersections on a trial basis, and they were supposed to be in the budget to have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I went back to the mayor and I said, you did promise before COVID, and is this going to happen? And he's like, well, yeah, maybe in the spring this year. This was, I think, 2020 or 2021. I can't remember now what. Well, it never happened. And now we have a new mayor, and I'd like to reintroduce this topic and get it started over again.
Mhm.
I'm also interested in indoor navigation, how to get public places set up. And one of my favorite ways of doing that is NaviLens. I don't know if you're familiar with that app, but there are other systems out there too that people are working on, placing beacons and buildings to kind of help guide blind and visually impaired people to key locations in a building. So elevator, stairs, offices, that kind of thing. So those are the things I'm interested in and working on.
Yeah, Marty, let me address the pedestrian safety one. And then I want to make sure that we are creating space for other folks too. So thank you. I'm appalled, first of all, that there are no accessible ped signals in Kenosha. There weren't that many in the city of Madison up to a few years ago. So some things that you might want to consider, first of all, new mayor. Might be new opportunity. I think also knowing who else in your community, and I know you're hooked in, would benefit from those signals so that you don't have to be the only torchbearer on it, because then it's really easy to tune someone out if they seem to be the only person asking for something. Best practices in cityscapes, city design these days are to include those at particularly problematic intersections. So you can start pulling resources on the use of accessible pedestrian signals. The federal pedestrian right-of-way guidelines explicitly say that those should be part of new construction. And even doing a walk audit with your mayor and your alder, take them with you on the places where you need to walk and demonstrate what it's like to try to cross at an intersection that isn't properly signalized for those of us with vision loss. I remember doing that with our mayor, and as cars are whooshing by, she's like, whoa. It was very impactful for her. So, we reach out to me. We can share some more resources with you on that. I'm happy to do it because it is really needed, and I'm very disturbed to hear that there's none there.
We have them up in Rhinelander. This is Brent.
Yeah.
We have
That's a
them
good
up in
example.
Rhinelander, but the main reason is because we had a lot of new construction downtown. They completely redid all the intersections, and they redid them with best practices. So hopefully, as Kenosha is updating any intersection, they're replacing it with audio.
They seem to be
Yes.
not, and there are a lot of
Oh.
intersections being redone down here, and that's that's the
Maybe.
way I addressed it to the mayor. I said, I know you're redoing a lot of streets and intersections around here. It's a
Right.
good time to implement it.
Yep,
And
that's exactly the right time to implement it. Yeah.
See.
All right, thanks, Marty. I know we could talk forever about this one,
know,
and I can get
thanks.
really wound up about it. So, and I want to create space for other folks. So definitely feel free to reach out to me, and we can do some more problem solving.
Brent, look for me at Lions Camp.
I will.
Awesome,
Good seeing you
Marty.
again.
Yeah. All right. And hi, Jenny.
Yeah.
And Marchuka's on here too. Thanks. Talk to you later. Thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
yeah, let's see. Denise, we've had someone put a comment in the chat. I just wanted to read that out to everybody to make sure, because I know not everybody is familiar. So this is from Zachary, and he says, "Hi, my name is Zachary Davenport. I am deaf, and I use the chat to communicate with you all. I want to share the information with you all that the U.S. Department of Justice recently published final rule under Title II of the ADA to ensure that accessibility of web content and mobile apps for people with disabilities. This final rule, sorry, folks, clarifies, there we go, pardon me on that, pop up there. This final rule clarifies the obligations of state and local government to make their website and mobile apps accessible." So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Zach. It's really, really critical. We are also waiting for the US DOJ and the US Department of Transportation to finalize and publish the website accessibility, not website accessibility, the pedestrian right-of-way accessibility guidelines as well, which will be, continue to be a game changer. And Marty and others would give you a really excellent tool to have those conversations with your mayors, because if they aren't putting in the accessible PED signals when they're doing reconstruction, they're actually in violation of federal policy. So gives you a pretty darn powerful tool. Folks don't like to hear that US DOJ could be involved. And Zachary, what a perfect thing to say on Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Thank you for sharing that that info. Let's take some more. I know there's other folks who have had hands up. I've heard some hands go up. I've also heard some chatter. So anybody else? All right. All right.
Is
So let's, oh, go
Marianne,
ahead.
Oh.
Yeah.
or she's on?
Let's see.
No, go ahead, Brent.
Okay. I thought somebody was raising their hand. I think they were maybe just adjusting their camera.
Yeah, if you want
Well-
to leave it up, I'm kind of scanning, so bear with me
Mhm.
here. Oh, yes, Mariama, is your hands up? Thank you for your patience. Let's see, but you are still muted. So if you can unmute yourself and then, yeah, please ask your question. Thanks, Brent. Oh, let's see. Just one moment, Mariama. I think you're still on mute. You might try holding down your space bar. That could help if you just hold that down while you speak.
And
Still muted.
Mariama, I know you're a screen reader user, so if you
Yeah.
tab until you get to your microphone, do you get to your audio? So just tab until you get to there and then hit your enter key or that should unmute you as well. Bring your focus to that audio.
And the other alternative is to, if you're on a PC, hold Alt and press A, or if you're on a Mac, Command Shift A.
Mariama, I really want to make sure we can hear from you because I want to respect your question. And I also want to suggest that we move on. And when you're unmuted, we'll take a pause so that you can ask your question. So staff, can you keep an eye out for when Mariama is unmuted? And then I'll pause in what I'm doing with the voting and come
Yes.
back. Okay,
Absolutely, Denise.
fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll do a both and. So as we transition a little bit with two very significant upcoming elections on August 13th and November 5th for both the partisan primary and the general election, I wanted to take a few minutes just to make sure that folks are aware of our voting rights. It is really one of the most fundamental things we can do to be good advocates is to vote in every election, inform ourselves about the candidates, about the issues, and to vote. And I want to recognize that as people with blindness and vision loss and other disabilities, there are lots of barriers to casting our vote. And we are historically, we vote in fewer numbers than our peers without disabilities. So I want to touch base on what our voting rights are as people with disabilities, give you some tools for exercising those, and then also bring your attention to a couple of key concerns that we've got that if we plan ahead, I think we can be ready for them. So it is really critical to remember that we have the right to vote privately and independently. It's part of our Wisconsin State Constitution. It's part of the Voting Rights Act, and it's part of the Help America Vote Act. And as people with blindness and vision loss, we're often put in a situation where we can't exercise that basic right. So and particularly when we're voting absentee. So now if you vote absentee, and many people with various disabilities choose to do that because it removes the transportation barrier for getting to the polls. We don't have an accessible ballot, and we're handed a ballot or mailed a ballot that has microscopic print that we can't see, and if we have any physical or fine motor disabilities, we can't mark. And so we're reliant on someone that we trust. Hopefully we've got someone in our world that will read that ballot reliably to us and will mark it on our behalf according to our wishes. But it leaves us vulnerable for, do we have somebody we can trust? Do we know that our ballot's being marked the way we want it? Because we can't see it to verify it. So we've been, Wisconsin Council, been working in the state legislature for several years, trying to change state law to be able to receive the ballot electronically, and then to be able to return it electronically so that we can use our screen readers to be able to mark it. The technology exists for this to happen, but state law has to change in order for it to happen. And we've not had momentum in the legislature, given some of our current political barriers to make really good headway on that. So currently, there is a lawsuit in Dane County Court to request that the state of Wisconsin create an accessible absentee ballot. We have 4 individual plaintiffs with varying disabilities, including blindness, including significant low vision, including physical disabilities that they're unable to, mark the ballot themselves and need to have someone else mark it for them or use assistive devices to mark it. And then the League of Women Voters and Disability Rights Wisconsin are the organizational plaintiffs. And I serve as the content, the content expert, working with the law firm on this case. So we will continue to update folks as this moves forward, and at least hope for some kind of remedy by the elections this year. We might get at least the ballot transmission to us so we can mark it. We may still have to print it and physically return it, but we're going to keep moving forward, knowing that this could take a long time to change, but using now the litigation system to make some positive change so that we can vote absentee privately and independently. We do also have the right to ask for assistance. And this is really important to know because sometimes folks are very afraid. Can I ask someone to help? Or they go to their polling place and they're told, no, you can't have help. Under both state and federal law, those of us with disabilities, and we don't have to prove our disability, we don't have to say what it is. We just simply need to say, I am using an assistant because of disability. And so when we're voting absentee, we can ask someone that we trust to read the ballot to us and to mark it according to our wishes. They'll need to sign the ballot, noting that they were our assistant, and they'll need to do that on the certification envelope as well. They can also serve as our witness if we're voting absentee, so they can do both jobs. They can also assist in delivering that ballot. So if you're not comfortable putting it in the mail for whatever reason, and there's lots of reasons that you might not want to do that, and you want someone to drop it off with your clerk, in your clerk's office or at your polling place on voting day, the elections officials are required to accept that ballot from you. And the only thing that they can ask is, are you the voter? And of course, that a sister would say no. And then they are, it's okay to ask, are you returning this ballot on behalf of someone with disabilities? And they would say yes. There's no other information that needs to be given. You don't have to be the certified representative or prove the person's disability status. If you are returning a ballot for someone and you're having them return it for you, be prepared that you might have some pushback from the clerk or from the elected official, because not everybody understands this voting right, and just be prepared to stand your ground. When you go into the polling place, if you choose to vote at your polling place, if you're doing absentee early voting, early voting in place with your clerk, the state and the federal government do not require that the voting equipment be set up for in-person absentee voting. So you may not come across the accessible voting equipment. In many cities, that equipment's being set up. In the city of Milwaukee, it's set up for absentee voting in person. It's set up in the city of Madison, but folks aren't required to do that. So you may need to bring an assistant with you. The assistant can also be a poll worker. And sometimes we've heard poll workers say, no, I can't assist you. That's inaccurate information. If you ask a poll worker to assist you because of disability, they are required to do so in a nonpartisan way. The only people who cannot assist you are your boss. So staff, don't ask me to be your assistant, your boss, or your union representative, if you are a member of a union, or somebody who's on the ballot, who's a candidate on the ballot. Obviously, we don't want them assisting. Otherwise, anyone else of the voters' choosing can be your assistant. When you go to the polling place, every polling place in Wisconsin is required by law, both at the federal level and the state level, to have the accessible voting equipment set up, tested, and ready for voters to use. All that accessible voting equipment is a monitor and a printer. It's not hooked up to the internet. If you've not used the accessible voting equipment before, this is a great opportunity to learn about it. It has a screen reader feature, so you're able to hear your ballot. There's a control device or a tactile marking device where you can choose your candidate from the candidate list. If you have functional vision and you can interact with the screen, you can enlarge the print and you can change the contrast, so you can vote on the screen as well. And then your ballot will be printed, and then you can put that into the tabulator. You can review your ballot before printing it, depending on the equipment, or right after printing it, reinsert it and hear what your selections were. So you can double check and make sure that you voted your ballot the way you want to vote it. So please use that equipment if you choose to, because that helps poll workers know that there are diverse voters who are coming into the polling place. So just like Brent said, get out in your community, use your white cane or your guide dog, go to your polls and use that equipment. Ask to use it. If your poll workers don't know how to use it and you do, it's a great learning opportunity. This is another advocacy moment to show them how to use it. I do that all the time when I go to vote. I'm like, do you know how to use this equipment? Let me show you. They don't get to see my voting, of course, but I at least can get them oriented so that when the next voter who comes along wants to use it, they know how to help that voter who might not know exactly what they're doing. There's an issue that we have some pretty big concerns about. Some of our very small towns in Wisconsin have been floating the idea of not putting that equipment out for voters. And there was a small town in Rusk County, which is in the northwestern part of the state, that their town board voted in June last year to disallow the voting equipment, out of fear that the information is being transmitted somewhere and the ballot is being manipulated. And so they, by their town vote, removed the equipment. And then when voters went to use it in the April election, they were denied access. This town had misinformation because this equipment, again, is not hooked up to the internet. It's simply a monitor and a printer that's accessible. And so that has been reported to the United States Department of Justice, and they are pursuing an investigation of that small town. So if you are an accessible voting equipment user, or you want to be, in theory, you should just be able to show up on election day and be ready to go to use it. But if you are concerned about it, I would recommend calling your clerk in advance to say, I intend to use the accessible voting equipment on election day. I want to make sure that it is set up, ready to go, and that it is accessible for me as a voter, and reminding them that that is both state and federal law, that that equipment is available to you. If you run into any challenges in being able to vote, someone says, nope, you can't have this person as an assister, or nope, we're not going to set up the equipment, or you get to the polling place and the equipment's not ready, and they were like, well, too bad, so sad. You have the right to ask for assistance. The best thing to do is to try to work with your clerk in the moment, so that you can get the issue resolved. But if you are still hitting a barrier, you can call the Wisconsin Disability Disability Rights Wisconsin's voter hotline. And Kathleen will make sure that that number goes out to you and follow up, and she'll put these links into the chat as well. That phone is answered by a human on election day, and actually on most other days as well. And you can let them know what's happening, and they can give you really good assistance in the moment. We'll also ask you to file an accessibility complaint with the Elections Commission, and you can do that on myvote.wi.gov. MyVote's a great source too for looking at your ballot in advance, so you can know what's going to be on your ballot. It's a great source for requesting an absentee ballot. It's a great source for registering to vote if you haven't done that before. And we know that that website is accessible because so I serve on the Accessibility Advisory Committee with the Elections Commission, and we have really worked hard with them to make sure that that is accessible. If you don't want to learn about candidates, you can go to Vote 411, which is provided by the League of Women Voters. Not every candidate responds to their questionnaire, but many do. So that's a great place to inform yourself. So I'm going to pause there. And I heard Marty make a comment in the chat just before Kathleen started putting links in. So Kathleen, can you touch on Marty's comment, and then we'll see if there's any questions, and then we'll create a little bit of time for folks to share their own advocacy stories if they'd like to.
Yes, Denise, I'll read out Marty's comment here just one moment. Also, Mariama has shared her question as well, so I would like to read that out too.
Great.
But yeah, so first though, I'll read out Marty's comment, which is, I think that accessible voting machines could be used by so many more people than just low vision or blind voters. Why aren't elderly voters encouraged to use them?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So really, Marty, you hit the nail on the head. So we've worked with the League of Women Voters over the years to do campaigns to encourage any and all voters to use that equipment. I've also done webinars with the Wisconsin Elections Commission for clerks, educating them that that equipment is not like the accessible parking space where you can't park there. It is really there for any voter who would like to use it. And there are so many reasons why people would like to use it. If you have a reading, if reading is tough for you, if looking at that small print, even if you have typical vision, as we age, our vision changes. So elderly voters, anyone who, is comfortable interacting with a screen. Sometimes younger voters are actually pretty excited about that equipment because they interface with screens on a regular basis. So we've been encouraging poll workers and clerks to say to someone, would you like to use the voting equipment, and to offer it. The city of Eau Claire really knocks it out of the park on this one. They try to really consistently offer it, and they have some of the highest participation in using the voting equipment in the state. So I want to hats off to that clerk team because they do an amazing job. So yes, you have the right, anyone has the right to use that equipment. Thank you for that. Mariama, let's do Mariama's question.
Yes, here, I'll read that out. And thank you, Mariama, for persevering and providing that question. I appreciate that. But yes, she's asked or says here, my name is Mariama Drama, for those who don't know me. I am so much inspired today by the 3 advocates. How do I get in touch with them privately to share more information?
So I don't want to speak for the 3 of you, and I also want to make sure your inboxes don't get inundated. So I'm going to suggest this and see how this sits with the 3 of you. How about if Mariama, if you're okay with it, how about if we share Mariama's contact with you, and then you can reach out to her as you feel comfortable. So let me check and see how that sits with you.
This is Brent. That sounds great with me.
This is Liz. That sounds wonderful for me.
And Wendy, you good with that too?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. So Mariama, if you're comfortable with that, we'll make sure that Brent, Wendy, and Liz get your contact information. And I just heard Rebecca's hand go up. Oh, now she lowered it.
Sorry about that, Denise.
Rebecca, jump on in there.
I'm going to put my name out there. I specifically wanted to talk to Wendy. Denise, as you know, I've been having monthly meetings with WISDOT, with the disabled community, and some of our concerns about public right-of-way concerns and design, and not just going with PROAG, but thinking beyond that, more specifically about wayfinding with some of these new curb ramps they're putting in with dedicated bike lanes, and how that affects orientation mobility for the white cane users. So I will be reaching out. I'll be putting my name in there, but I'd like to hear from Wendy if she's so interested.
Oh, definitely. Let's get this done. We're all getting hit.
Yeah.
Let's end that today.
I can relate. I've been hit by a car too, but I was not injured like you were. So.
Yeah. And just for context, Rebecca works for Independence First, which is one of the independent learning centers, the one based in Milwaukee, and former ADA person with the city of Milwaukee. So yeah, that would be a great contact.
Perfect. That sounds great.
All right. Any other hands that I haven't heard? Or anyone else want to ask a question, and we'll create space for that. And then also, we know that there's some really outstanding advocates on this call. So, it was really hard to choose the 3 panelists. I will say that. And, I'm so grateful for the 3 of you because you were really powerful. And we've got a few minutes left. So are there other folks who have a short kind of advocacy success story, or kind of what lights your fire, or an example that you would want to share? And I'll ask you just to take a minute or 2 for that. I know one of our advocates, I'm not sure if she's still here, asked if we would make a plug for the importance of having people with vision loss on committees and boards and in the public sector. And I know I spoke to that as I was making my comments, and I'll just re-emphasize it, that as people with disabilities, we are significantly underrepresented in the public policy making sector. So, so important for us to represent and make decisions. So if you have that as a goal, something you want to strive for, that's awesome. Learning about how to do that in your community, talking with those of us who have done that, are doing that, again, to get ideas about how to navigate it would be awesome. I'd love to see us represented in equitable numbers to, you know, the population. So, you know, consider that. And I heard a couple hands go up. So
Yes.
Kathleen, I'll ask you to
Yeah.
help facilitate with that.
Absolutely. Yes. And sorry, I'm looking for the full name, but yes, I saw the hand both ways. So is it Kirmi? Please, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Correct me and then ask your question. Thank you.
It's Carrie.
Here. Okay, thank
Carrie.
you. And yeah.
Yes, I'm Carrie Robinson. I live in De Pere, Wisconsin, and I think this is more of what do I do and how do I do it kind of question. So when I had surgery for a clot, I went blind on the operating table. Okay. So when that occurred, I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who to talk to. And this is something like what you were talking about, lived experience. I was scared, didn't know who to turn to, and didn't know too much of anything. So I'm trying to pose it in the right way. So I want to advocate along with the other issues is transportation, but this is my passion, is to eventually speak to someone or talk to someone about when these things traumatically happen to an individual, what services would they have for somebody like myself, or that happens to myself. And I just want a little bit of advice. It doesn't matter who it comes from, but I just know that not knowing who to turn to when your vision is lost, that was kind of difficult, and it dealt with my mental health there as well. So it's just a question, and I would enjoy, and I'd be grateful if someone could, just kind of lead me in the right direction.
Yeah, Kira, I'm so happy you're here, and thank you. So somehow you got here. That's really powerful and awesome. We wish that more eye care professionals would refer people to organizations like ours, the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, or the Office for the Blind and Visually Impaired, which is part of the state system. You're from De Pere, so there is a rehab specialist named Angie in your area who works for the Office for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And, connecting, and folks in Milwaukee, there's Vision Forward, Southeast Wisconsin. because there are really important life skills about how do we live really well as people with vision loss? How do we continue cooking? How do we navigate? How do we use our computers? How do we take our medication safely? Those are not things that automatically people know how to do. And so building those skills so that it doesn't feel quite so scary. And then getting connected with peers, people who get it. So there are vision support groups, vision loss support groups around the state. We offer 2 of them, and those are virtual, so that people can join us from wherever they are in the state. Again, Kathleen, will you put the
Yes.
info about the low vision or the vision loss support groups in the follow-up email? Those meet monthly, and people start networking with each other and get validation. Brent, you run one in Rhinelander, too far for Kiri to get to, but there, Angie from OBVI wouldn't know if there's a local one in the Green Bay area. We also have that list on our website. So I think that really powerful place to start is learning those blindness skills so that your life feels more in control and it feels less scary, and then getting connected with peers who get it and who can offer suggestions and who can validate the feelings and be there to support you. So Brent or Liz or Wendy, anything you'd add? And I'm also really aware of time, so I want to honor that.
Real quick, I because of you served on that patient centered care committee at UW hospitals. And
Yes.
I was really advocating for, and they have developed it well, a low vision clinic. And there they have a social worker at the low vision clinic. And then they also have, they're able to connect people with services. So I'm not sure if that's in De Pere, but no, but
No.
that kind of thing is like the model that I wish existed everywhere. But is there anything that Curie would be able to connect with over there with Dr. Mondell? Would that help like virtually or anything?
Yeah, she doesn't do that at all, which is a
Okay.
great suggestion, but I
Sorry
think,
about that.
reaching out to OBVI and to us, I think are the best, the best 2 things, because the clinic model that UW ophthalmology here offers in Madison is it's an atypical, it's an unusual model.
Can I make a suggestion? This is
Please,
Liz, by the
Liz.
way. Reaching out to your local ADRC.
Yes, yep.
They would have a wealth of information and avenues to help navigate down to get the help that you need in your local community immediately, hopefully, for you.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
They'll help you think about how do you get food, how do you, just the whole, beyond just the vision loss, but all the other things that cascade. Yeah, Brent, I hear you. Go ahead.
The last thing I'd add, you asked how you can stay connected and help others. If you're in Angie's area, my specialist is Jeff, and I actually carry around a stack of his business cards and make sure that if I meet somebody, I'm like, have you met with Jeff yet? Or I also leave a stack at the local eye clinic, so the care team there knows that if they're diagnosing someone with sudden vision loss, also hand them a rehabilitation specialist card and get them in contact.
Brent, I love that. So yeah, Angie from OBVI, I'm sure would be happy to work with you on that too, making sure that we've got that contact info to share with people.
Curie, thank you so much for asking that question, because that just brought up a lot of information I did not know and stuff that I'd want to share. So thank you so much.
All right, let's see. I think we are at 1:30, a little after. So I know folks have busy days ahead. So is there anybody that does have a hand up? I don't want to blow past that. I heard Angie's hand go up and then I heard it go down.
Yep, exactly. So just, yes, there we go. She's unmuted. Thank you.
Hi, this is Angie. I just wanted to say thank you guys for sharing your story. I'm over at DHS, and I do the support for our other councils, our Physical Disability Council and our Governor's Committee for People with Disabilities. But also, I really appreciate kind of each one of you saying like networking and getting to know your legislators and talking about specific experiences you had. So thank you for sharing today. And I am planning on at least Denise either reaching out to you or I think you said Miriam to get your guys' information. I think it's a great opportunity for us to network, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, Angie, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it. And also express that to Zach too. I'd love that. All right, so panelists, I really want to thank you for really bringing it today. The three of you are rock stars in my mind, and I'm so grateful for your candor and really sharing your story. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I'm hopeful that there's a takeaway, something that is lighting your fire or keeping it burning so it doesn't burn itself out, because we need you. You know, if we're going to really change the way Wisconsin is for people with vision loss, we need each other to do that work. And we'll be heading into another state budget, another lawmaking period. We've got 2 really critical elections coming up. So, and doing that work on the local level also is so powerful. It's where you can see change happen sometimes more quickly than you can see it at the state or the federal level. So keep advocating, keep making a difference, reach out to us with questions, get signed up for our newsletters. Any of that, any and all of that, the action alerts are really useful. Kathleen, I know you had kind of a list, but I also want to just touch base with you to see if there's anything I've left out.
No, those are all of them. I'll just emphasize, because we did get several folks either beforehand or during with low vision the support groups. So I just want to assure everybody that I'll be including that one, especially in information on that. So want to address that specifically since it was, but no, yeah, there'll be some other resources, and yeah, by all means, and we'll have a survey, of course, and things like that. So please be on the lookout in your email inbox, along with the recording and things like that. So yes, thanks, Denise.
Yeah, you bet. All right, everybody, have a really good day, and you know, advocate well. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.